Welcome to a demonstration for CAD Master's CAD Standards Manager. Think of our Standards Manager as a delivery system for your standard content. Standards Manager is an application that works inside of AutoCAD for CAD users and another application that works outside of CAD, right in Windows, for CAD managers. This software allows companies to populate and change their standard content and deliver it instantaneously to all users. The content is stored as an SQL Server database and delivered directly from that database or via an SDF file, which can be easily used in multiple offices with no loss of speed through the internet. Please see our website at cadstandardsmanager.com for further information as well as videos in learning what this software can do for you. Whichever flavor of AutoCAD you use, Standards Manager contains flexible options for delivering its commands. While the ribbon is the most common interface tool, we also have toolbars, pull-down menus, and optionally, customizable AutoCAD tool palettes can also place content. We find the easier the software is to use, the more likely CAD users will enjoy using it. If the software makes it easier to add the required content, then the CAD Manager is happy as well. Working our way down the ribbon line, you'll see first there's a setup panel and then a layers panel. We'll talk about these briefly. The set current standard, what this allows you to do is the software allows you to have many different standards if you like, and for internal, external, different municipalities, whatever you're trying to do, you can have different standards, and that way the different databases are mutually exclusive. We're going to be talking about the National CAD Standards today, so everything you'll see is from that. So if you do not have a standard, you can actually also use the National CAD Standards if you become a member. We can give you the database to start from. Alright, so currently the current system in AutoCAD is when you create a layer, you go to the layer dialog box, you create a new layer, call it something, give it a color, etc. Alright, this is obviously it can be tough for new users if there's a layering scheme that they don't know yet. They have to go look it up, etc. So you lose some time there. What we're going to show you is our interface when you do a layer creator. If you create a new layer, it's quite a bit different than you'll see from AutoCAD. There's no way for the user to make a mistake here. Based on a certain discipline, and these are the disciplines from National CAD Standards, I'm just going to go ahead and use civil. You'll see in here there's different categories, and these are the category names that NCS gives. Okay, so what they have to do is come in and say, let's say I'm doing something with roads. So they have to know that they're in the civil discipline. I'm going to go to another major component for roads. And you'll see here this gets populated as they pick. Only certain combinations are allowed, and those are the only ones the CAD manager can actually provide to them. So they can't make a mistake. The minute that they choose a layer and then hit add to list, you'll see it gets added from the database with the description, the color, the line weight, the line type, even if you're using an STB file, a name style, whether it's plotted or not. So it's very difficult and impossible to actually create a layer that's not standard. So you just have to teach the users to navigate this instead of having to go look it up in a binder. Now there's many different ways that we can actually go and grab layers by picking the different components. Okay. We can also do it by group, and this is fully customizable inside of the administration module, which we'll get to here and there. Say I'm doing something with bridges. So these are all the layers in the database based on the bridges. So if I want to grab a bunch of them and add the list, you can see here very simply I can go and grab what I like. Now the minute that I hit OK here, these layers have been created. Now I can go to town, etc. Okay? So another way is because layers are so important, and there could be lots of them, we have an interface here to grab them from the drawing, or also a search. This is a very big one here as well. Where are these layers? So for example, I'm looking for some layers that have a contour in their description. So you can see here, very quickly, it'll take every single layer in the civil discipline and look for that combination. Okay. At the same time, you see there's some for demolition and existing. What I can also do is I can filter out. Say I want to filter out demolition. Okay. It'll research, same thing. And I'll also filter out the existing as well. So you see anything to the left is what's shown, anything to the right's filtered out. Alright, so you can see here a bunch of different layers. Okay. So let's say this is a list that I want to use all the time. So as a user, instead of having to come in and do this every single time, you can see here where I can save and load layer states. So what happens is now I have this, I can go ahead and save this state. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add these all to the list. Now that they're all in here, I can go ahead and save the layer state. What that means is the next time that I want to come in and use this, I can. Now I can save this to the local library, which means for me only, a standards library. I can set it up to the database if I have permissions to do so. I'm just going to go ahead and save it as contours here. Okay. So I'm going to cancel out. So what I'm talking about here is instead of having to create those layers or find them all the time, the next time you come in, instead of having to go find it, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and load it. That one that I just created, that I called contours. Okay. They're now added. I didn't have to do all that searching again. I hit OK, and now they're all there. Okay. So very quickly I can come in and change colors and change layers, etc., and add that to the list. So instead of having to look it up in a binder, we can now create layers based on many different criteria. Other layer management tools allow the user to come in and ID a layer and also reset colors and line weights and line types. Very important, and I'll show you why. So for new users, we have a couple of examples here. For a layer ID, if you pick a layer, it gives you the actual layer name as well as the description coming from the database. As well as this is an X reference, so if I want to do X for X reference, I can also pick a layer from an X reference. So I can still get the right layer and see what it is. Okay. There's nothing to prevent the user from coming in and changing any value of these based on color, even the line type. So there's nothing to prevent this. So I'm going to go ahead and put some weird ones in here. Line weights, even a different plot style for that matter, whatever it might be. So what can happen here is once a user does this, obviously we're not standard anymore. What this does is it goes back to the database and allows us to set it back to the way it's supposed to be. Okay? So if I go to reset, you'll see here I have the option to do current drawing as well as X references. I'll do everything at once and I'll hit OK. What this also allows us to do is if different disciplines want to see these layers differently. I'm going to show it as the civil discipline here. So it goes right back to the way that civil discipline wants to see it. We have some instances where people want to see it differently depending it's maybe a surveyor wants to see the layers differently depending on how they plot. So depending on how that's done, the CAD administrator can come in and set different layer properties based on discipline. So it can be very useful to reset these things back very quickly to standard. So you can see everything got set back based on the database. In addition to that, there are some auditing tools as well underneath here for listing layers in either layer group tools or even some save and restore layer settings. So very simply here, the list layers. Okay. You can also say I'm going to scan the X references so I can see the X references. I can create a report, export it out to a file if I want to do that kind of thing. It's very simple. Okay. So I can very quickly see what's standard, what's non-standard, all layers, so I can create reports as needed if I wanted to show that. I would now like to demonstrate how CAD Standards Manager deals with symbols, details, and sheet borders. We have a custom interface that we made that will, based on a discipline and a group name for symbols, you can find a particular symbol based on that. We'll go over later how the CAD administrator can actually add the content and edit this content. So for example, a couple things I want to point out. Notice my current layer is 0. So if I insert a block, okay, you'll see it's going to ask you for an insertion point. I'm just going to randomly pick a spot over here. Okay. Notice it's automatically doing it multiple times. It's automatically putting it on the right layer based on how the CAD administrator sets it up. So you have to just train the users in order to get to this right symbol, get to the right discipline and the right group. Okay. We also have some other features. You'll notice on some of these blocks have been set up that it's going to actually prompt you for a status component. See where it says existing, demolition, and null. If I hit return for null and set a symbol, notice what layer it goes on. If I do that same symbol again, instead of saying null, I'll say existing to remain. Notice it goes on this layer. So you can also program the software to automatically prompt the user to which layer for status, demolition, existing, etc. And that can be programmed inside the administration module, which we'll show you here shortly. Okay. Some other settings, you can actually align a symbol on an object. This can be a very useful tool. Okay. You can also change the size of the images and how that's displayed, as well as change the group tabs. Notice here, if I like it to do it this way, I can actually add the tabs instead of doing it by group. Okay. I prefer having less tabs, but that's just me. Okay. So what's going to happen is now what is aligned on symbol here, if I go and click on this, if I snap to any object, no matter where it might be, say there, notice here I'm locked into position at 45 degrees. So it'll automatically align with that object. Okay. And again, that was just simply this. Okay. Align symbol with object. Alright, so that can be any object. It can be a curve, an arc, whatever. You'll see it'll automatically align with that. Okay. Even an X reference. Very simple. Okay. So you have this opportunity here to come in and change as far as what the symbol goes, what layer it's on, how the settings are set up. Okay. You also have the ability, because sometimes there's a block library that's humongous, is to search for particular blocks. Okay. So we can either do it by group, subgroup, if you have the name, what description it is, what layer it's on. You can set up these filters and set what you're looking for. Let's say I'm looking for a manhole. Okay. Run the query. You'll see everything that has to do with a manhole will be sitting there. You see as I hover over it, you see the manholes in the description. Okay. If I wanted to, I can also save this query. If I want to do this at some other time, run query, save it, etc. So I can actually have these things saved for easy retrieval. So that way you don't have to go find them each time. So a couple of options. Discipline and group name will find the right symbol. Okay. Then we have the settings that can change the align symbol with object, some other options as well. Okay. As well as that. I would now like to explain how the administrator can add content or even edit content as it relates to symbols. You see I'm in the administration module. Discipline name is the civil, and then I'm going to go to the group of utilities. We saw this in this last example as far as what symbol name, the description, what layer it goes on, whether it's scaled or not, or even O-snaps and even some macros being custom programming. Okay, I'm going to go through the process of creating a new entire group. So I'm going to create a new group. I have some symbols that I'm going to grab in their stamps, some engineering stamps. Okay. By creating a new group, again I'm editing the database on the fly. There's now an empty group, nothing in it. I'm going to add some symbols, which is just AutoCAD drawings, just like everybody has. I'm going to grab a few of these. Gives me the opportunity whether I want to add the symbols to the current directory structure or just reference them from where they are. I'm going to add them to the directory structure, and you'll see here I can actually add names and descriptions. Some very descriptive descriptions as you get. But at the same time, I'm also going to say make sure that these go on a particular layer. I'm going to do this in multiple ways. Okay, so civil annotation symbols is what I'm going to put them on. So it automatically will go on that layer. These are not going to be scaled. I'm not going to read the drawing scale for that because typically these would go in paper space on a sheet maybe. So I won't do that. At the same time, I'm also going to come here and create palette images. What this does is it creates the images that go on our custom software. Okay. So you can see kind of behind the scenes it's actually creating those blocks and going through the process of creating these images. Okay. So the user doesn't have to know how to do this, obviously it's just going to show up for them. Once the images are created, we also have the opportunity, if we wish, we can also do this fix blocks. It's a nice batch utility where we can go through and change some properties of all these blocks depending on what group they're in. Some convert dimension styles, text styles, purge the drawing, some basic commands that can actually help you through that process as well. Once these are added to the database, I can immediately go back into AutoCAD and see those blocks and can be able to insert them. So you'll see here I'm back into my CSM palettes. There's my civil discipline. There's my stamps group that I just made. And you'll notice here there's my fun little descriptions as well as I hover over them. Notice my layer is 0. If I click on a stamp and bring it in here, obviously I'm not scaling it, so I click on that, you'll notice it automatically goes in the right layer. So as an administrator, it's very easy to add the content or even edit the content of existing symbols. Most companies have a standard detail library that they place on the network. We also have a solution that solves that problem as far as finding them. So we're in the CSM palettes again. We also have a button for the details. Okay, and you'll see here the tabs change based on discipline and group. We have an opportunity here to have a library that shows the description and the block name of any detail someone wishes to bring in. Okay, so if I go ahead and do that, insertion point, rotation, scale. Okay. So you can see here, depending on how you want to group these together, you can find these details very quickly. Settings, you can change what names if you want to display the groups, and if you want to X-reference them rather than block them in, you can do that as well. I should note that if you do X-reference them, it does not X-reference the master. It copies the master down to the project and then X-references it from there, so you're never really modifying the master as needed. But most of the time I see people are inserting these things rather than X-referencing them. The ability for the CAD manager to also add content through details is very similar to what we showed you in symbols. In the administration module, we have a details tab based on discipline and group name. I'm going to go ahead and create a new group, and I'm going to call it retaining walls. I have some examples that I can do, so similar concept here. I'll go add some details, which I have some in here. I'm going to grab all this retaining wall, give a description and a layer. Civil annotation symbol, remember the last one I did, and I can give keywords for searches, etc. But the main thing is description and layer. That way, once this is done, the user can go ahead and add those in. Once the CAD manager completes this task, one would just have to come into the CSM palettes again, into the details, come in here to the retaining walls, and there they are. I'll go ahead and insert one. Ready to go. Okay. So in this example, you can see how details, very similar to symbols, to be able to add content is very, very simple. Finally, with regards to the CSM palettes, we also have the ability to bring in sheet borders. Very similar concept to the symbols and details. I'm going to go ahead and go to the Layout tab, and in sheet borders, I'm going to go ahead and grab some sample ones. Now, every company has their own, and it's very easy to populate just like the other ones. I'm going to go ahead and bring in a 24 by 36. This is straight out of the NCS. This is one of their examples. Okay. The reason why I wanted to show you that is what it just did. Is it did this in two steps. At CAD Masters, we do this as well. As we X-reference part of the title block and then we insert another part. It did this all in one step. So you'll notice here as I click on this, it tells you it's an X-reference. So what really happens is in the admin module, under the sheet borders, we have the ability to do this in two steps. Here's that sample sheet group. You'll see here the primary is going on this layer and it's being X-referenced. The secondary is a different drawing and it's being put on this layer. The reason why that can be important is that way you can do two things at once without having the user have to deal with that. Now since it's being X-referenced, remember it's copying it down to the project and then X-referencing it from there, so you won't have duplication, because a lot of times every project has a different title block, so to speak. Standards Manager also has the ability to obtain styles from a database as well. You'll see the panel up here. We get select text style, dimension style, multi-layer style, as well as page setup. So if the user needs to grab a text style, they simply must come in, say select text style. Based on discipline and group, let's say I want to go to a Romanesque style, and I want RS 100. Notice here it's reading the current drawing scale, which is down here, and it's going to be a height of 4 because the initial height was 0.1. So by doing that, it's as simple as loads a text style, puts the height in, etc. It does the math for you. Okay. We also have the ability to do annotated text as well. This one is annotated. The height's going to be 0.125 on paper. So loading that in automatically sets the paper text height and makes it annotative. So however the CAD administrator wants to set this up, they can actually set up these text styles in the database for anybody to load. Dimension styles are a very similar concept to text styles. The administrator would have to load those into the database, and then they could be easily brought in by any user. The user comes in and loads a dimension style, grabs a dimension style. I'll go ahead and add a dimension style to the drawing. Okay. If they want another dimension style, go grab another one. I'll grab this one. Add a dimension style. Good to go. Okay. Very simple to bring it in. Dimension styles aren't that difficult, but having them readily available makes it very easy. As a CAD manager, one simply has to make dimension styles inside of the drawing. You see I've made a few here, and then we're going to go into the database and import them into the Dimension Styles tab. So we can come in here. I'm going to go into the annotative style. I already have the engineering. I'm going to go ahead and import the architectural style this time. Okay. And what we can also do is, you can see here, there's all the different variables for those of you familiar with dimension styles. I'm going to go ahead and also change the text style being used. Since text styles are used inside of dimension styles, as long as you use a standard name, you'll be able to bring that in as well. So again, you can edit the dimension style outside of AutoCAD once you have it in there. So I'm going to go ahead and shut this drawing down. So now when I come to this drawing, I will load a dimension style. And here's the annotative, and there's the two that I just made. Okay, bring it in, and now I immediately have my dimension style ready to go. Standards Manager also deals with multi-layer styles. For example, the user would come in and load a multi-layer style. And notice there's no multi-layer styles available in the database. So we're going to go through the exercise of actually importing them in and showing you the process of that from a CAD Manager point of view. So I have a drawing that I've created that has a bunch of multi-layer styles with different blocks and arrowheads depending on what they're doing. So as administrator, you'd have to make these styles first, and then inside of the administration module, I'm going to go into the general, and then there's this multi-layer styles here, and I'm going to import the multi-layer styles from the drawing. So these are all the ones that are coming from the drawing, and I'm going to go ahead and grab all of them except for standard. What it's doing at this point is it's actually going to export all those blocks that are associated with this arrowhead styles, as well as the block as well. So I'm going to call this one multi-layer symbols. So at the same time it's exporting all those blocks, so that we go to another drawing, the block automatically gets imported, and then the user can use that very simply. Okay. I don't know if you can see behind the scenes there. It's now done. You can see underneath here, here's all the styles. At the same time, in the symbols, it automatically imported all those symbols. Okay. What I also wanted to show you is the ability to come into this guy, and you can see underneath this, again, I'm outside of AutoCAD now. I can change text styles and any symbols if I want to change the symbol as well. So just note that I'm going to do area A here, and I'm going to change the text style instead of standard. I'm going to make it a bold so it's easy to see. I'll use bold 100. Okay. What that does is, now that if I insert area A somewhere else, now that new text style is actually going to be applied. Okay. So I'm going to go back to a drawing. So immediately I'm going to come back to the load multi-layer styles. Now I have them all in here. Okay. And there's that area A that I told you about. You'll see it loads it and sets it current, and I'm going to go ahead and make a dimension, what do you call it? A multi-layer. And notice it's now that style. What should have happened is it automatically loaded that and applied that to the multi-layer style. So again, import them from a drawing into the database. Once they're there, a user can use them immediately, and the administrator can actually edit its standard content. Standards Manager also deals with page setups. Many companies use page setups with templates and or import them from other drawings, but it's nice to have it readily available in case someone needs to load it immediately. So it's simple as making a page setup, import it to the drawing, everybody has access to it, and then it simply loads it to the drawing. So now at this point I can come in, it's now there, I can set it. So a nice little practice to be able to have it in a centralized database where everybody can access those page setups. CAD Standards has a complete set of compliance tools, which we call layer conversion, text style conversion, and dimension style conversion, to get from a standard or non-standard setup to a standard setup. Many companies have older drawings or are converting standards. They need to get from one standard to another standard, or they receive drawings from clients. They need to get to their standard. So we have a whole set of tools that will get you to that location. I would now like to describe how Standards Manager deals with layer conversion. The user would come into a particular drawing and they can run the layer conversion utility. This will open up our interface that will allow the user to pick layers as well as X references and other features, which we'll show you now. So currently the current drawing has these layers. We also have an X reference that I'm going to go ahead and scan that will bring in the layers from that X reference. So what you have the ability to do is take one of these layers and assign it as a standard layer. So you can see here, if you also need to, we can also walk these to kind of see what's happening. And as I click on any one of these, it'll highlight, so I might get a better idea of what it's supposed to be. Okay. In the interest of time, instead of having to go here and set assign layer to each one of those, what you can also do is, if you get the same drawings over and over from other companies, you can save and load layer conversion files. I've already saved one here as well. so it says this layer is supposed to be here. You have some other options as far as showing non-standard, standard, or all. Some other options as well we'll get to later. I'm also going to go ahead and sign it by layer, line type scale of 1, and update any existing layer properties, meaning if that layer exists, it will update it to whatever the standard says to. Okay. You can also see I can redefine blocks as well. So what happens is I convert this, it says, are you sure? So I can immediately come in and have it update to the correct layers. Okay. Notice as well, this is an X reference. If I use the xopen command, I'll open that one up as well, so it actually set those layers correctly. So you can see a very easy tool. If you receive a drawing and you have this layer conversion file, it's a very quick process to get it from one standard to another. Layer conversion can also be done in batch mode, meaning that I can be in a drawing that has nothing in it, but still grab other drawings from other directories in my list of drawings. So what I'm going to do here is in a drawing with no layers in it, besides 0, I'm going to go to this additional drawings tab and actually grab a bunch of drawings from another folder. So I have some drawings that I'm going to go ahead and scan. What that's going to do is open each drawing and allows for different layers from every single drawing to show up. But you see there's a bunch of duplication. So I'm going to go ahead and hide duplicate layers. That way I don't have to see which layers are multiple. I can just grab the one. That way I don't have to set them 4 times, 8 times, whatever it might be. It'll say that one layer for all the drawings that I have in the list. Okay. In the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead and load a layer assignment. So it'll automatically bring in every single one of those layers that I've done before. So again, in batch mode I can do this. It'll open every single drawing, do a layer conversion, close the drawing, and save it. Okay. At the same time I can redefine blocks, etc. So are you sure? Yes. So what it's going to do is behind the scenes it's actually opening each drawing, doing its layer conversion, and then saving it. Okay. So what I'm going to do is open up any one of these particular drawings. I'll open up a couple of them here. Automatically set the layers correctly when before they were not this way. Automatically did that. Very nice utility. Finally, layer conversion can also do entity filtering, meaning you can go ahead and search drawings for different types of entities. Okay. For example, once I come into the layer conversion utility, I have this entity filtering tab. So what I've done is I've created a very simple drawing that has different types of entities like hatches on these layers, 3D polyline in this layer. So what you're doing is you can search a bunch of drawings for all hatch patterns, let's say, and just change the layers for hatches. So I can come into the entity filter and say only look for hatches, and I will go ahead and apply the filter. It'll only show me layers that contain those type of entities, and you'll also see that the entity filtering is applied. If I want to say do just MTEX, let's say, apply the filter, same thing. It'll only show me layers with that particular entity type. This is a nice utility for you can search many drawings for different types of entities in order to change layers. To quickly show you dimension style conversion, this is a drawing that has just a bunch of different dimensions in them. I'm going to go ahead and open up the dimension style conversion utility, very similar to the text style conversion, where we have paper space, model space, as well as the same tabs as before, filtering, etc. The ones that are red are the ones that are non-standard. So you can see here where I can say I want to show only non-standard, I only want to show standard, all with overrides or without. The overrides, if you override the text, you can actually show those. There's this keep manual overrides that will allow you to do that. I'm not going to do that in this case. I'm going to go ahead and grab every single one of these in the interest of time, and I'm going to go ahead and change the dimension style. Right now it's a 24, which is a half-inch scale. I'm going to go ahead and change it to a different type. I'm going to go to engineering scale just to show you how that works, so you can very quickly see that, to a 30 scale. Okay. So what should happen is it goes to every single one of those, converts it. So now you'll see that there's all these dimensions now are the engineering scale. And here's some of these overrides here that I was explaining before that is actually overwritten instead of having the actual dimension in there. Okay. So it did convert them, it just left those overrides. Text style conversion and dimension style conversion are extremely similar in nature to the layer conversion. When you go to the text style conversion utility, what it's going to do is it'll show you any styles that are in the drawing, red being non-standard. You'll see here, if I click on any one of these layouts, you can actually go to paper space as well, and it automatically changes that in paper space. So you can see here you can combine all model tabs, all layout tabs, or all tabs in order to go ahead and convert your text styles. You'll see here there's a different height section for some of these guys. So I'll show you here. Let's say I want to go ahead and do some filtering, and anything from 0 to 0.125 I'm going to show. Okay. So that way the height filter is applied, and it's going to only show those types of text entities. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come through here, grab everything, and you'll see here there's a maintain existing height, or I can change layer or change style. I am not going to maintain existing height, so right now it's 0.125, but I will change the style. So to a bold style, just so we can see that. So a B100, which will make this a 0.1 basically. Okay. So in all that selection set, it's going to change those heights very quickly. So you can see now I have these guys at a 0.1, and it's a different style. Other things you might notice is I do have some overrides, color as well as font, which is allowed in mText. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back into the text style conversion. Same thing here. I'm going to go ahead and do another filter, but this time 0.126 to I don't know, whatever, and apply that. So it'll show me all of those. This time I'm going to go ahead and say maintain, since they're different. I don't want to go ahead and change those. And I'm going to go ahead and change the style to, I don't know, Romanesque it looks like. Okay. Notice the heights didn't change this time. All right, so now you can see all the headers are that type of font. Okay. This can also be done in batch mode, same as the layer conversion. I'm not going to spend the time to do that, but you can see the exact same tabs, additional drawings that were there before. What I am going to show you for the text style conversion is if I go and select everything, there is an option in there to remove format overrides. By doing that, you'll see here those overrides that were color and font are removed as well. So you can see I can do this in batch mode, or I can also do this one at a time. A couple of final features I wanted to explain is from the administration module. In this database, which is NCS5 in this case, there's this output to SQLCE. This is the function that will actually create an SDF file that you can actually transfer between offices to make the transition very fast and easy. What I mean by that is that way, instead of having to have a different SQL server in every office, you actually produce this SDF file, and that's what the users are linked to. So it becomes very, very fast and easy to distribute throughout multiple offices. And also, as an administrative procedure, you can also output each discipline to a spreadsheet. And what happens is now you can have some kind of a hard copy to actually produce for internal as well as external use, meaning this is what is provided. When you export that out, it shows you every single layer, the description, its line types, its everything else as well, as far as what the groups are and every single layer name, as well as each symbol as well, with including its picture, so you can actually produce this as a document for internal use, or even send that to an external use if you're trying to work between offices. Thank you for watching the Standards Manager demonstration. This software, which runs inside of AutoCAD, can streamline your user's workflow to make sure standards are followed throughout your enterprise. Please see our website at www.cadstandardsmanager.com for further information, as well as contact information.